There are 29 billion coins in circulation in the UK that have the Queen's head on them, and we will soon begin a lengthy process of changing that from a face of our Queen to one of our King. Well, Dominic Chorney, an ancient coin specialist, spoke to me earlier about what this might look like.
I think we have to look to the past to get some indication of what may happen. The Queen's father, King George VI, he died in February of 1952, and it was by the autumn that the new portrait of Queen Elizabeth was created. That went out as a sort of competition to see which was the best design, and the Royal Mint picked the portrait by Mary Gillick, very, very popular portrait of the Queen. But it took time to get that process in motion.
Yeah, I have no doubt that it's going to be a lengthy process. You mentioned there that it was kind of, there was one chosen. Is there any indication as to how this new coin might be chosen? Will it be the royal household that does it? Will he sit for a portrait? What does that look like? What's happening behind the doors at the moment, if you have any indication as to what that could look like?
We really don't at the moment, but I think it's very interesting. Charles is quite traditional, so I think the King may decide to have his portrait taken from life. The last portrait of the Queen wasn't actually taken from life. Jodie Clark's 2015 portrait was actually engraved on a computer. It was created using existing photographs and imagery of the Queen, which the designer rather wonderfully created this new portrait with. But the Queen never actually sat for the design. She did for her previous 4 portraits. So that'll be interesting to see whether King Charles decides to have his portrait taken from life.
And will there be any notable differences that we will see between the coins that Queen Elizabeth II did and those ones that King Charles will do? Obviously, it will be a different face on there, but as for the rest of it, will that look any different?
It certainly will. I think we know almost for certain that, well, we have a tradition in Britain of coins going back hundreds of years where the portrait of the monarch faces a different direction to the previous monarch. And I've got 2 coins here, one of George VI and one of Queen Elizabeth. And you can see that King George VI's portrait is facing left, while the portrait of the Queen is facing right. And this is a tradition that, like I say, goes back many, many years. And I think it's almost certain that we'll see portraits of Charles, King Charles III, facing the opposite direction. So he'll probably be looking left.
Going back to the left. And how long will we see the current set of currency that we have? How long is that likely to continue in circulation for? There are billions of coins with her face on it. That's not something that's going to happen overnight or in a year or 2 from now.
No, I think it'll be interesting to see what efforts the Treasury really makes in withdrawing the existing coins. I imagine they'll be circulating for decades. Previous generations may remember using the pre-decimal currency, and in that currency you may have even seen coins of Queen Victoria. You know, in the 60s and the 50s and the 40s, you definitely have had coins of George V and George VI circulating alongside. So this will be the first time that more recent generations will see more than one monarch in circulation.
It's a really good point you make, because her reign was so long, for 70 years, many of us have only ever known her. And so it's a really interesting process as to how we are going to change. You talked there a little bit about the evolution of the coin and of the currency. Some major changes happened under her reign. Talk to me a little bit more about that and how we went from sort of one currency to another.
In the late 1960s and 1970s, we went through a transition called decimalization. Before that, Britain's currency was one of pounds, shillings and pence, or old money. And then it was decided really that that wasn't suitable for the modern era. So the decision was taken to decimalize the currency. And in 1971, Decimal Day occurred. The coins were switched from the old pounds, shillings and pence to pence and pounds. And you can see these decimal booklets that were given to pretty much every family in the country, almost like a passport for the coinage, and all, of course, with Queen Elizabeth's portrait.
So a guide of sorts as to how to change from one to the other?
Yeah, people were confused. They didn't know how they were going to switch from a system where there were 240 pence to the pound suddenly to one with 100. So the new coins sort of mirrored the previous ones, and they did circulate alongside for a little bit. But it was a real upheaval in the currency, and one that took a lot of getting used to for some people.
Yes, and just looking at these coins, the ones that are so familiar and soon will have a new face on them. People are probably thinking, oh, I'd like to have a memory of our Queen and her face on our coin. what's that going to look like? With so many coins in circulation, are there certain ones that perhaps will have more of a sentimental value? I don't know, perhaps ones around big events, the special coins. What should people be looking out for when wanting to have something special to remember her?
Well, I imagine almost any coin of Queen Elizabeth's reign, people can keep and save. I mean, people collect things like the 50 pences at the moment. Those will have a whole new meaning now, especially coins from this year. But, values aside, I think, I'm sure the Mint will be issuing some sort of commemorative set for when Charles becomes king, presumably a coronation set or something along those lines. But yeah, I think people will just naturally, pick coins out of their change. And also, like we say, the coins of Queen Elizabeth will be circulating probably for decades, so she'll always be with us in the currency, whether or not we decide to actually collect anything.
There we are, some insight there into the changes to our currency and coins, and when we might expect to see those happening.